Are we ready?
Yeah.
I think we're ready. Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Valencia Haynes from FilmBath, and I'm here with Ben Bond, the director of The Drifters, along with the stars Lucie Bourdeu and Jonathan Ajayi. And we're very excited about this film at your screen, which is available as of today, a preview, and will go online and on April 5th and is available until May 23rd. So yeah, very, very, very much enjoyed the film, guys. And so congratulations. Yeah, I really, really did truly enjoy it. So I thought the thing to talk about most, because for me, it's always about the script, where it starts. Can't have a great film without a great script. So yeah, so Ben, tell us about how did the story evolve? Because I know you were a writer first before director. So
I started off as a screenwriter, really just sort of dabbling in TV, but wanting to do movies. And I directed a lot of adverts, but was really keen to see if I could kind of do something that lasted longer. And I've been watching. I'd had I'm a sort of obsessive movie watcher, and I'd had a sort of period where I'd watched a lot of European movies.
Yeah, you can see that.
Clearly, you can see that from the film, and I've gone through nearly all of Godard, Eric Romer, Antonioni, Bertolucci, all that stuff. And I was like, I wonder if it's possible to make a film like that now, because so many of those tropes and ideas have been absorbed into cinema narrative, and you even see them in blockbusters, and the colors and everything's been kind of done. But I was like, well, maybe if we take a kind of postmodern approach and stick up, make it very intertextual, you could do it, because they're the kind of films I love, and nobody seems to really make them like this and sort of unashamedly romantic. So there was that was kind of the filmmaker element of doing it. And then the script itself, I'd been in about 10 years ago now in Senegal for a huge music concert called Africa Live. And I've been working on it with my father-in-law. He was a director of it, who's a documentary filmmaker. And I got to hang out backstage and take photographs of all the musicians, and met loads of amazing people. And around that, there are also lots of, there were about 100,000 people came to see it in Dakar in the crowd. And it was like a sort of big Woodstock thing. And I got talking to people. And one of the stories around that was that, a lot of the young people were leaving Africa and coming to Europe and beyond, going to America and sort of seeking new lives and that journey was really tough. And often they get sent back and have to come again and keep trying. And they were just very inspiring characters. They were like real life heroes. And I thought well, it'd be great to try and write about this. And then, the opportunity came, and that was kind of the germ of it, was really, what if one of those characters had made it all the way to the UK, and then, was trying to kind of normalize his life and experience, and met and fell in love with somebody who was, overwhelmingly brilliant, but there were these kind of barriers to maybe them being together, and that they weren't going to recognize and try and get over, and just kind of putting those two characters together. And the last thing I'll say about that is I don't know if people realize this, but they've both got nicknames. Coffee's real name is Kofi, and Kofi is a nickname because he, his backstory, worked on a coffee farm. Yeah. And Fanny's nickname is Diamonds, and they're the two commodities, she's this kind of, three-dimensional, sparkly thing from, with hidden depths. And he's kind of also got this sort of a much more kind of fluid kind of, coffee travels and it goes everywhere, and but it hasn't got the same kind of status and wealth as Diamonds. So it's there's sort of all of this stuff going on underneath.
Yeah, but that's interesting, Ben, because one of the themes I thought was so fascinating, and I'm sure Jonathan and Lucie probably have some thoughts on this too, but it's so driven by two characters who are so opposite. And you, Lucie, play it so beautifully when she's so indecisive, like doesn't know she likes Hollywood or does she like Hollywood? Does she like coffee or not? And coffee is so decisive and so certain, and Fanny's much more kooky and coffee's more serious. And I thought that whole play throughout was really clever. But so did you two as actors come to that with seeing that in the script, or did that evolve in how you portrayed the characters?
I think both, actually. Both of these things, actually. Jonathan, maybe you can add something more.
I think it was a bit of both, to be honest. I think those qualities are present in me and Lucie quite naturally anyway.
For sure.
Like when I first met Lucie, she was going around with this like vintage camera, like, or like on her Instagram, just like snapping things that I just wasn't seeing in the world. You know, that camera, yeah, exactly, man.
You can notice it.
You know, so Lucie like comes into my life, and I've never met someone vintage like her before. You know, but I was in a very serious point of my life. You know, graduating from drama school, and I was taking everything very seriously and trying to do the right thing. But Lucie had this incredible freedom that I was just like blown away by. So I think those things like they naturally just came to the surface because that's who the characters were asking us to be, but we already had those qualities inside of us.
And did you see that at the casting, Ben? Did you note that kind of chemistry between them in their
yeah, like right away, actually. I mean, and we cast far and wide for this, and I was very fortunate in that, you know, because it's not got a huge budget, you know, there was a virtue. We could cast the best people for the job, and there were no pressures on that. And I knew when I saw both Jonathan and Lucie independently that they were going to bring, like, I just think, you know, like you cast actors so that they can bring their own game to what you're doing. And I see it as a really collaborative thing. And it was like, I wanted them to own the characters and not for me to have, you know, and for the writing to overwhelm it. And so they had a lot of freedom, actually, even though we didn't have a lot of time, I think, and we stuck mainly to the script, but there are lots of amazing bits where they're just chatting away that we couldn't, like some of it, some of their sort of spontaneous chat and improvisation makes it into the film in terms of what they're saying, but like physically as well. Like, I think what was most exciting was that we had a 5-day kind of period before where we didn't workshop the characters, but we kind of ran the scenes, and Lucie and Jonathan got to know each other. And for the first 3 days, like, they were brilliant. They're both very accomplished, technically very good actors. But I was like, you know, and I could see that there's chemistry there, but it was just wasn't quite clicking for me. I was like, kind of, come on, there's got to be more here from you guys. And then they went out and they spent a night together, and I don't know like what happened. I mean, like, but they nothing like dodgy, obviously, but like I know that they went out and got to know each other very well and shared stories and were very honest with each other. They came back the next morning and it was like, oh my God, what's happened? You've got it. And every scene they ran was just like perfect. And then character becomes like an Instagram filter in a way, because you can run anything into that filter and it will come out the other way with that character placed upon it. And I felt so confident at that point that really, for me, like before we shot, I was like, wow, that's over half the job done, because these guys have got it. And that gave me a lot of time on the ball, as it were. And I'm very, very grateful for that. And I think if it had been two actors who didn't have as much craft and sort of just natural ability, you know, I think I learned very heavily on that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what was your biggest challenge, as this was your first featured film directing?
Well, I directed a lot. I had a lot of experience technically in terms of ads, like shooting ads, and with like on like probably bigger crews and bigger budgets. I think that the key challenges were really time, mostly because we had an insane amount of locations for a film this size, and I really wanted to kind of, even though we didn't have a big budget, for that not to be a barrier. It's a road trip, you have to go to different places. And so I think that was the key thing, was just making sure that Jonathan and Lucie and the other actors in the film just had just enough time. You know, there wasn't a lot of time to kind of experiment. They kind of had to hit it pretty fast and pretty early. And so I think that, and the other thing, I guess, is like, we were shooting, I wanted to make a daylight movie. A lot of those movies I love from the 60s, you know, they're not overlit. They're not shot at night. You know, and I kind of really wanted to have that feel. And in England, obviously, that is a real, you're rolling the dice with that, right? But we got lucky. I think somebody was looking at us going, okay, look, give these guys a shot, because we had 4 weeks of unbroken sunshine, which, believe me, living and growing up in the southwest of England is a rarity. So that was, you know, that would have been the biggest challenge, but actually the weather came out all right. So we're okay. It was a smooth, and I think tiring but very enjoyable shoot. Everybody's going to go, oh, you're going to hate it, you're going to want to like sink into the ground every day. I loved every minute of it, and I hope that translated to the crew, who seemed to have a good time too.
Well, Lucie and Jonathan looked like they were having a good time, definitely.
Sure.
And, but I was quite curious about both of your characters, because I love the subtlety of the script, and that it was very, that homage to the French New Wave, that it was kind of a de-emphasis on character. And plot, I should say, and more character. But there were some things, Lucie, like I think you make a reference to what happened with your stepfather, and that's not really explored, or maybe I missed it. But I thought that was that intentional? Like, did you as the character, was there an element with the stepfather that you chose not to leave out, or?
Well, it was in the script. The fact the stepfather was actually a detail, but a really important detail is just the fact she lived because of him for the first time, and then she lived another time because of another guy. And we shoot actually this scene in London. She lived in a man's place, and actually we shoot the scene that she leaves the place. She's crying and it's over, and now we get the fact she's homeless, and the fact is not in the scene in the film. This scene, it changed a lot of things. I think, because there is not something in French we say pathos. I don't know how to explain it in English, but the fact we don't want you to cry with her, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just a details at the end, and the fact we don't feel the fact they are homeless, and we are just in their fantasy, and the fact that the sun, it was always there, make the thing work more. Like, it's really a dream. Like, we go to the south and to the sea, and there is so much sun, and no guys is here anymore, and like, I think.
And I love your play on Uma Thurman and the Quentin Tarantino film, and that was that both you and Ben together collaborating on that, or how was that in the script, or because you played it so well? I thought that, but it was subtle enough that it wasn't so obvious, you know, that
was funny because it was in the script, but I loved this scene since I was like 10 years old, and at the casting I bring like a photo of me of Mia costume I did on Halloween. So that was a sign, like, and look, I know this character, I know the dance. And it was in the script for the scene when I shoot myself with the phone.
Yeah.
But I remember that in Devon, Ben gave us so much freedom. And that's what you said, with even if it was in a rush timing. But we did another dance thing. We were doing the scene. We were eating Chinese. On the dog, and I was like, "This is beautiful, Ben. Can I dance?" And you say, "Okay, 10 minutes. Let's go. You dance." And it was always because of the same love of the cinema. We did another scene on this set, which was not in the movie, but there was so much seagull. And I was like, oh my God, this is so Hitchcock. Like there is so much seagull.
Yeah.
The bird again. And he said, you know what? We're going to do it. Okay, let's go. You go there. We threw fries on you and seagull will attack you. And we shoot it. And you do it like a TPF burn for sure.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
It
All the scenes. Pardon, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it was amazing, and I would love to have put it in. I mean, like we were trying to be playful with all of that stuff, and yeah, I mean,
yeah, and all the cinema reference all the time. It was so fun. The fact I can say, I'm ready for my close-up Sunset Boulevard quotes. I was like, this is a dream actress for sure.
Lovely. Oh, and Jonathan, my question for you that I noticed that is your scar on the back.
Yeah.
When you get your very lovely torso out.
Yeah.
With Lucie, and I thought I'm assuming, well, it could be violence in London, it could have been on your journey. I did really appreciate that it wasn't about that trauma necessarily, but was there more to that, or was that how did you interpret that?
Oh, I interpreted it as him literally bearing the scars of his journey to London, you know. And I think, you know, in the canon of Black characters, you know, we're always exploring trauma, we've always gone through, you know, a lot of hardship, and our narratives are always about our hardships, you know. But it was a breath of fresh air reading the script, because here's someone with trauma literally bearing those scars, trying to transcend that moment or that time in their life, you know. Yeah, and it's that constant. I tried to do like a psychological gesture in the preparation, just so I had a constant, you know, awareness of it throughout. But after a while, I realized I didn't really need it, because it had happened, you know, and it made me admire the resilience of migrants, people that dare to make that journey. You know, they don't make that journey to spend their life suffering, they make that journey to live a better life. So no matter what you get through, if you make it, if you are lucky enough to make it, you have to grow beyond. And this is what Coffee was living through when he met Diamonds. He's trying to grow through a lot of trauma.
It seemed like at that moment, I mean, you both, for me, had this turning point of trust, and for you, for Coffee, was that moment where you're really reluctant to be intimate, aren't you? And you let go. And for Lucie, for Fanny's character, it felt like, you know, on the bridge when you're holding, not his bridge, but it's the kind of the cliffside.
Yeah.
You're holding his hand over that. And I thought that was a great moment that you both seem, when you're on that journey, that's when you literally let your guards down and trust each other. But then sadly, am I right in thinking, is that when you're so vulnerable, and then do you go out and sabotage? Was that an intentional, the seduction of, or, and I wasn't even seduction of Leon, but the Leon's father, but the sex scene. I thought, oh, please don't do it. But was your character sabotaging, do you think, the future, or what was that scene about?
For me, sure, she's sabotage kind of herself. She's a auto-destructive kind of, because this is she how do you say, sorry for my English, it's been a while since I speak. She's on her own for all of her life. She was on her own, so she trusts him because she felt something, and the fact they are like kind of the same situation but so different at the same time, it bound them, but she can't really trust a guy, actually. I think that's kind of it. And she can trust only herself. That's what I felt.
Right.
Yeah, I think I think that's really, really absolutely right. And like, I wanted a moment. I mean, it's some of my favorite bits of the film is like, you know, you have those scenes with the four characters on the beach in the hut, and it's a kind of tried to get a real Eric Romer feel into that particular sequence where they're just kind of on the beach, and then Lucie's character Fanny puts her hand on Chris's hand, I think that's just like, for me, it doesn't really mean anything in the context of that scene, but like it trips a switch and it kind of carries you through to the end of the film, and you're like, you're that's great that you had that reaction, Valencia, because I want the audience at that point to be going like, please don't do this. Why are you doing this? You've got this, you know, but it kind of has to happen because you get to, you know, no spoilers, but you get to the end of the film, and I really wanted the characters to kind of end up in different places and leave the door open for them, and to have, like, I think that one of the final shots, or the final shot that we see of Fanny, is that she feels quite free in that shot. It's a kind of, there is a kind of freedom in that. And Jonathan's character is maybe less free, but has escaped some kind of something, you know, difficult. And I think like it's a bit messy. And I think, well, that's a good indication of like how young love can be. But like underneath that, there are these sort of, you know, I guess sort of not exactly overtly political layers, but there are layers underneath that once you've watched the film that you'll get, and you're just like, you know, it asks a lot of questions of the audience at the end. And I think Lucie's not, I don't see it as betrayal, but Lucie's kind of, you know, sort of fling is what kind of powers the film through to the end.
Yeah, well, for the Chris hand, I remember telling me that's how she communicates with men, kind of, you know what I mean? She wants him to be close, but not too close, like give them the opportunity, like just, you know, like she gave the go, you know what I mean? Kind of, in every interaction.
The seeds about are sown right at the beginning of the film. In the very first scene, she goes, as a joke to Coffee, what if I'm against men? Yeah. And she says, I'm a character of 3 dimensions. And again, that's to do with her nickname, Diamond. You know, to begin with, there's a lot of front in Fanny's character. She's very surface, lots of makeup.
Right.
And that is stripped away through the film. And you kind of get to see the real her, which is complicated. Yes. And I think all the more valuable and for me, lovable because of that.
And Coffee, do you think your character was hopeful in that, in the end, as it is? I know it's ambiguous intentionally, and we won't give away the end, but was he hopeful? I'm curious what you thought.
I want to say that it's nice for Diamonds to have a guy in her life who was purely honest with her. That's not entirely true. But I think, well, I would like to think that Diamond could see his heart, you know? And it's that thing that, you know, love conquers all, you know, love makes you do crazy things, you know? And I think that's the situation we saw. I think we saw Coffee kind of like bemused by this woman, you know, for the first time in his life, like, oh, well, the first time in a long time since he can remember. Like, he's got that feeling in his chest and then pumping in his head, and he's like, wait, I forgot I could feel this way and I don't want to lose it. You know, and when those feelings come, you will do anything, you know. I really am of the belief that when you meet the person that you want to be with, you will move heaven and earth to be with that person.
Yeah. It's interesting that your choice of choosing this film, because I was thinking with Noughts and Crosses, you know, it is a love story as well, but it's, you know, it's 2 people whose worlds are divided by racism. And the film, I thought, is really beautiful in that I didn't feel race was an issue. And the politics are perhaps an issue, or their history of the lives they've been is the issue. But I thought that was a really fresh take on clearly it could have been a race issue. So did you respond to that, Jonathan? In terms
oh my goodness. Well, it's my lived experience as a person, you know. I have so many similar sensibilities to Coffee, you know. I grew up in a very big, vibrant, proud Nigerian family, like, you know, food, music, language, culture, like there were so many similarities. But the thing that I loved about Coffees was his just ability to, you know, to put someone in their place, to check them without having to like destroy the earth in the process. You know, when she's like, black people can't swim, he's like, okay, let me come and give this girl some education. You know?
I love that. I love that.
He does it and it tells a story, you know, there's this, he's so deeply poetic, you know. I remember me and Ben were talking about African griots, you know, and these are the people that are entrusted with the stories of a village or of a people, you know, and he bears the stories, you know, almost like scars, you know, like scars on his back. And it's like each lash, each memory represents a story, a time in life. So, you know, it gives him an ability to deal with things that could be problematic in a very gentle, poetic kind of way.
Yeah, I think that's really beautifully put. And like what I loved about Lucie and Jonathan is also they're very musical, both of them. And I would love to have had more time to explore, or like, you know, had more improvisation, like the music and the dancing. A lot of that came from in them. You know, it was sort of in the characters, but they really sort of took that and ran with it. And it is like that idea of like the griot, like Jonathan says, and there is this sort of gentle Sufi element to his character as well. You know, there's a kind of quite strong Islamic vein which runs underneath the bottom of the film, and in the same way as race, we don't ever turn up the volume on that. We just let it sit there, and it's one of the things that I'm like most happy with. It's like that. We don't have to go there. It's just there. We don't make a big deal of it. It starts. The film starts with a quote from the poet Rumi. There's a lot of Rambau in there, who ended up becoming an Islamic seer in North Africa. You know, we pan across a piece of wood that says God is great, going from right to left. There are just little moments in there that, you know, I think will hopefully reach out to a section of the audience. And it doesn't matter if it goes over your head or not, but it's there.
The best, I thought, for me, the most powerful, the most clever way you depicted that was the call to prayer alarm clock that Fanny discovers, because I thought you didn't really know where you stood until that point on your spiritual side. You knew it was the spiritual character, but without having to elaborate and be so heavy-handed. That quirky, I didn't know such thing existed as an alarm clock. I heard it. When I heard it, I knew what it was.
Me too.
Did you?
I felt the same, actually. I was like, what the? Okay.
We have my wife to thank for that. She travels a lot with her work, and she bought it back from Sudan about 10 years ago. And I was like, God, use that clock in something. It's amazing. It's brilliant. And then, so it was like one of the, like, even before I wrote the script, it was like, I know that clock's going in there.
Yeah. And so one other scene I really wanted to ask you all about, it was quite pivotal, I think, was in when Kofi says about the choice. For me, it was like the really powerful scene in the movie when he says, you know, my choice is between life and death, and you, Fanny, is between pleasure and pain. And so was it in that moment, I thought, just so well executed in a kind of in showing how different they were. But when you say the pleasure and the pain, I was wondering, where was that referring to her pleasure? What was the pleasure of her being such a fun character, and the pain? What was the pain part of it, Ben? What were you hoping to?
Well, you know what, you're asking the wrong person. You've got to ask Jonathan, because I tell you what, that scene from both of them, I gave them a couple of points to hit, but they improvised the whole goddamn thing. So I'm glad that you found it. I mean, like, it makes me think that we should have done more improvise. Should have just said, here are the beats, you guys go. And I think with more time,
I really like that, Jonathan. So yeah, so you tell me where did that come from?
Well,
It was a hard scene, no?
Yeah, it was.
They were tired and angry as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you remember the argument we had?
Yeah.
I was like,
we have 4 minutes left.
Sorry.
The pleasure is white privilege. You know, it's a story about two migrants. They're both immigrants, but one will die for it.
Yeah.
You know, and one won't. You know, and I honestly think it's as simple as that. You know,
I love that.
this was a moment where I could be really simple in this moment and just know what I know to be true and tell someone, you know, you will not die for what you decide to do.
Yeah.
I will, you know. And it's really unfortunate that's the way the world is, but it is the way the world is, you know. And I think that's one of the most important things about the movie, is that it just shows the way the world is, you know, as these two people escape reality, you know. But
it's so powerful in that moment because it's right in the midst of their fantasy, their road trip. And then that you deliver that scene, and I thought that's why it was so effective.
I think he would have always known that from even the first day, you know.
Yeah.
It's just the way the world is, you know. So no matter who he met, you know, that's always a thing. It's like the choices I make are not the same choices that you make, even if we make them in the same space.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, so before we go, I want to hear what are you all up to? What's next? Project.
Go ahead, Jonathan. Go ahead.
Are you...
I don't know. I don't think I'm allowed to talk about it.
Okay, that's
but
fine.
some things. I did a short film actually that premiered at South by Southwest and won the Grand Jury Award. So that was cool.
And I saw you're nominated Most Promising Newcomer. Jonathan.
Yes, that was incredible. That was a mad moment. That was a mad moment. It was a nice bit of good news during the pandemic.
Yeah. And I saw, Lucie, that you are directed a short. So I'm hoping Ben inspired you to consider directing.
For sure. For sure.
Already.
No, but yeah, I direct some stuff. Actually, I do a lot of music video right now.
That's so cool.
Thanks, man. I'm doing one in May for the other music video is coming in May, and you can watch the old one. It's called Lulu Ventra Brazil. Go watch it.
Lovely. And Ben, for you?
I have just written the next film. I hope it will shoot later this year. Very different. It's about a giant and his talent agent in the 18th century, and it's like a period movie that's like shot like in the most modern kind of way that you can imagine. Very funny, so I'm looking forward to doing that. Yeah.
Oh, well, I can't wait to see it. So best of luck to all of you. And again, for our viewers, please do watch the film. I really enjoyed it, and even talking about it now, I want to see it all over again.
Nice.
So yeah, well done to all of you, and congratulations, and look forward to seeing what you do next.
Thank you so much. It's been our pleasure.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.